Hey everyone, Sinza here, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. Now in this video we're going to be talking all about Ganyu, the latest 5-star Cryo bow character. And she is very good, especially if you actually like bowmen. And she's really easy to use, and we're also going to be going over a lot of stuff, weapons, like stats, the kind of stuff you should try and get on your artifacts, artifact sets, her talents. But I will not be going over constellations because she's a 5-star. um, Unless you're just spending a lot of money, it's going to be, well, impossible to get all her constellations or even another constellation. So this will just be going on her as a base character, and I also, um, every all the testing will be without constellations. So first, let's go ahead and go over a little bit on how Ganyu works. The first thing that makes her very unique is her charged attack. So most bowmen have a charge attack. But Ganyu actually has 2 levels to her charge attack, and you can see the charge there. So it'll blink once and then twice, and it's really quick. So she charges very fast. And I'll go ahead and go to the talents now to show you. The way her charge attack works is at the first level, it's just like a regular charge attack. It's a cryo damage arrow. But the second level is a frost flake arrow. So it does damage and it'll bloom after the target hits, which I will show you in a little bit. And it does AoE damage. Now if you look at the attributes, you can see how strong, like, those are regular hits, and then the aim shot is just 75% just for doing it, and level 1 jumps up to 198, and then Frost Flake is the level 2. So it's 205 damage for the actual level 2 arrow, and then another 348% of your attack for the AoE afterwards. So that's really strong, and this is at level 8. I would have actually leveled up more, but I just didn't get the materials for it. And then her skill, Ice Lotus, is basically a taunt like Amber's, like Amber's little puppet. So it'll put an Ice Lotus on the ground that'll taunt enemies, and its health basically scales to Ganyu's max HP, but I wouldn't build HP, and it'll just blow up once it's destroyed, dealing AoE damage. She's pretty strong. And then finally, her burst ability is this Celestial Shower, which is literally this big ice area, and has such a cool animation. It just continually rains down ice shards. So it's like 98%, but it lasts as long as the cooldown. So, and her energy cost isn't that bad at 60. So if you are getting a bunch of particles, and if you're actually remembering to use your Ice Lotus on cooldown, you'll be able to keep up that shower pretty much the whole time. And then just her couple passes, which really helps out. Her Frostflake arrow, after firing her Frostflake arrow, the crit rate of the next Frostflake arrows, the subsequent Frostflake arrows, and the resulting bloom effects is increased by 20%. Basically, that means whenever you hit with a level 2 charged arrow, the AoE and all other arrows after that will have their crit rate increased by 20%. And since at least for this build, and for the if you're using her as a main attacker, you're going to be using your charged attacks all the time. You're going to literally just be charging attacking to rank 2 until you have your abilities up. So that's basically a free 20% crit rate. And it'll last for 5 seconds, but since you're constantly doing it, it'll be up like all the time. And then finally her other one, while in her Celestial Shower, all active party members get 20% crown damage bonus. So, just a quick look at the stats before I go and show you a little bit of my artifacts and stuff. I have a very low crit rate, and I'll go over that in a minute. But I only have 11% base crit rate. I have 177% crit damage, and then my attack is plus 1255, so a total of like 2,000 something, and then I have a 61% cryo damage. So that's 61% plus the 20% bonus, so that's like 81%. Excuse me. While in the ultimate, but also because of her crit rate being extra 20% after her firing her level 2 arrows, that's basically after the first hit. That's a permanent, basically 20% crit rate. So this 11% crit rate that I have is actually like 31% crit rate. And then I'll just go ahead and go over my artifacts. I'm using the artifact set, the Blizzard set. I wasn't sure how good it would be. I figured it would, pretty much made for her, and I do think this set was made for her, and is probably the best set. I would like to try out like a Wanderer's Troop set, but I'll go over that in just a minute. So first of all, the Blizzard set, two-piece gives you 15% cryo damage bonus, which is great because that's the damage you're going to be doing at all times, whether it's your skills or your charge attack, it's all cryo damage. So that's a 15% increase right there. And then the four-piece makes it so that whenever you attack an opponent that is affected by cryo, crit rate is increased by another 20%. And if they're frozen, an additional 20% on top of that. So if you're attacking basically frozen enemies, that's a 40% crit rate increase. So now you can see why, even though my low 11% crit rate with her passive of just a free basically 20% crit rate, that 11 is now 31%. And then because she's a cryo character, she's always going to be affecting with cryo, so that's another 20%. So my 11% is now like 51% crit rate, which is higher than what my Jinyan's crit rate is. So like if you can get to 50% plus or crit rate, then that's amazing. And if they're frozen, another 20%, so like 71%. And I'll show you this in combat that it's pretty big. I still crit quite a bit. If you're fighting frozen enemies, then yeah, you don't need an extra crit rate. The extra attack and crit damage I think is better. Now if you have crit rate, that pretty much guarantees you're gonna always crit them. But I think that you don't really need to worry about crit rate if you don't have it. So in terms of the stats that you're gonna want, obviously the first three you can't choose, or the first two you can't choose. The last three, the hourglass, timepiece, you're gonna want attack percentage on that, cryo damage or attack percentage, but try and go for cryo damage for the cup, and then crit damage for the helmet. Now you can do crit rate. Again, it all depends on what you have. If you don't have a crit damage hat, attack percentage works fine. I was doing decent damage even with attack percentage. I was testing out attack versus crit damage. I mean, crit rate can work. If you're not using the Blizzard set, for instance, then you're probably going to want crit rate. So, but if you're using the Blizzard set, you don't necessarily need crit rate. If you're not using the Blizzard set, a crit rate hat would work. And then back to the Wanderer's Troop, that's another option. Elemental Mastery is pretty decent if you have interaction or reactions, but the four-piece also is good because it increases your charge attack damage by 35%, and that's her big damage. So if you can get a decent crit rate and crit damage, Wanderer's Troop could actually be better because that's a 35% damage increase. Yeah, but you would have to have crit rate. I do think that with a crit rate bow, perhaps Wanderer's Troop might be better because you'll have a high crit rate. Her passive is still an extra 20% crit rate on top of that, and then you have 35% bonus. Because the Blizzard set, the four piece is only to give you that extra crit rate, and because of that, if you have a high crit rate already, the Frozen set I don't think is needed because you're going to be critting. But if you have a low crit rate, I think the Blizzard set is perfect because you can pump all those stats into attack and crit damage and not have to worry about crit rate. But yeah, if you have a high enough crit rate, I think Wanderer's Troop is probably the one to go with. And yeah. Oh, and then my weapons. Now I don't have a 5-star weapon. If you have a 5-star weapon, I would say any 5-star weapon would work. It doesn't matter. You have a 5-star weapon, do it. Now if you don't have a 5-star weapon, there are a lot of options, and she would work. But for this is just pure. She's like main attack. You're probably gonna want attack percentage. The Favonius Warbow isn't bad. It makes it a little bit easier to make sure you have that ultimate up, but I really don't think you need much help. I don't think you need the energy recharge, and I don't think you need the effect to have your ultimate. But I was solo without not using any of my other heroes, and I was still able to. There was like maybe a second or so downtime of my the Celestial Shower Burst. So I don't think you really need that. Stringless isn't bad if you want to go for more, a burst build of using your skill and burst because increases by 30%. Elemental mastery is higher. If you're using her like for combo purposes, then Stringless will work. Again, sacrificial bow, I don't think you really need it. Having the option of that second charge, especially if you don't have the constellation that gives it, isn't bad, but I don't think you really need it. Rust isn't terrible, but it does, lower your charge attack damage by 10%. So you're going to be getting a 10% decrease. But I do think that if you have Rust and you only have like these other bows previously mentioned, then maybe Rust might work because the attack percentage that you get from Rust will make up for the 10% loss that you get compared to the other ones that don't give any attack percentage. But I'm currently using the prototype Crescent, not fully level, but it's 86 out of 90 because it gives attack percentage, and when you hit weak points you get movement speed of 10% and attack percent 36% attack for 10 seconds. Now it's hard to see if you have that because you get those arrows, which I'll show you now. It just went away, but I'm gonna go do this daily real quick. Now you get the arrows around you that show that you have a buff, but I don't know if that buff is from me hitting them or from the ice, which I could actually probably tell pretty easily by making sure I don't hit a weak point. So let me just do that real quick. So yeah, she still gets the arrow. So I think that is the 20% crit rate increase that she's getting. But as you can see, she's still critting, Like, look at these crits. Remember, I have 11% base crit rate. And then, I like that dash. And the Lotus looks pretty cool. And then I'm going to use her ultimate now. It just looks so cool. But yeah, and she's going to be constantly getting ice. So, that's a pretty high crit rate. 16k hits right now, as you can see. And, well, they're gone now. But, yeah, you saw that I was critting most of the time. Even with my 11% crit rate. This is why I say I don't think you need to have that crit rate. 11%. Like, that's abysmally low. So if you had even like, because that was about 51% crit rate with my bonuses, because they weren't, none of them were frozen. Now I'll show you how they are when they're frozen. But yeah, at 51%, having that crit be that high, or like that crit rate chance still being that high, and that's without them being frozen. So this is going to be this. This gets really annoying at times. But yeah, this is going to be like 71% crit rate. So, that's insane. I think this kind of proves how you don't need to really worry about crit rate because of the passives and the Blizzard set. Now again, this is with the Blizzard set. If you do not have the Blizzard artifact set, you're going to need crit rate because crit rate is pretty important for her. Which I would try and get on a bow. So like personally, if you don't have any 5 stars, I would go with the BP bow for sure because it's got, the battle pass. It's got a crit rate on it. But like, look, that the bloom effect is critting, and then I'm critting most of the time because they're frozen. So I tested this earlier with an attack percentage, and I was doing about my crit damage. I mean, my bloom effects were doing about 12k or so. So the crit damage is definitely stronger. It's not much stronger, but it's definitely stronger. So I will say that because my attack damage hat was way better than my crit damage hat. So I will say that the difference between attack and crit damage is not huge. If you have really good stats rolled on an attack hat compared to your crit damage hat, I would take that. But if you have really good, if they're both equal, or if you have really good secondary stats on your crit damage hat, attack, crit rate, that kind of stuff, then go with that. Either of them will work at this level. At least it's not much less, but it's just, yeah, it's really fun, and you can keep her ultimate up quite long. Just need to heal real quick because those people are hurt. But yeah, it's It's basically 100% crit rate. It's not really. It's only like at 70 right now when they're frozen, but it's enough. It's enough. That's one of the biggest things I wanted to show in this video, is just how much you don't need to stack crit rate when if you have the Blizzard set and if you're using Ganyu, because yeah. Ooh, I'm gonna die. Yeah, I'm dead. But that's okay. I happened to die right when I did everything I needed to do, which is fine. So, if you liked the video, please give a like and subscribe for future videos. As always, thanks for watching.